Hello and welcome to Soulful Thoughts from New Zealand. This is Meghan, your host, mystic, author, teacher, death and dying guide. As I'm recording this, it is just the beginning of November, and the US election has not yet happened. So even though this podcast will be posted probably on the day that the results will be well known, I cannot speak to those results directly. But I think what I'll be speaking about today will give us a base to be with the results, whatever they may be. And recently, I entered into my yearly Samhain Day of the Dead ritual, a meditation gathering. And this year, we took a different approach, an approach which opened us to the fullness of our ancestors, the fullness of communion and our evolution. So we were contemplating not just our family ancestral lineage, not just our cultural ancestral lineage, but that of the land and earth herself, that of all the elements of the earth, the air, the water, the fire, the earth, knowing that these elements circulate through generations, bringing us gifts, bringing us life, and all of the creatures on this earth, considering them as our ancestors also, and the mountains, the stones, the trees, the plants. When I was visiting my great-great-grandmother's birthplace in Ireland, as I was sitting upon a bench in amongst these extraordinary trees, ancient trees, large trees, I was sitting there and I could feel my grandmothers, my great-grandmother and my great-great-grandmother on either side of me. And then I also heard from the trees saying, "We are also your ancestors." And of course, in and behind all of these palpable elements and trees and mountains, creatures that we see, they're also the elemental beings, the fairy beings, the gnomes, and the peoples of old from a magical time, the Tuatha Danann in Ireland. And of course, if we keep expanding into the other dimension, there are the mystics and saints who have walked before us, all alive with the spirit of love, the spirit of life, all flowing with the desire to commune with us. And when this communion happens, evolution happens, both for us and for those spirit beings who are giving to us. So I actually want to read for you a poem which comes from a novel I have recently read called The Last Beekeeper. And this is written by, I'm not sure if I've got the correct pronunciation, Saya Turabi. And I'm going to slightly change this poem as I do, to just make it a little bit more gender equal. It was written specifically, of course, in relation to the novel, so I'm just adding a few little things in here, minor things. Here on the sand, I look to the line of ancestors, staggered at my back. I hear the music that is still played by the very first one, and my vision trails through brother, father, grandfather, sister, mother, grandmother, on and on, great-grandfather, great-grandmother, great-great-great ones, until there is only space, and the stories that my grandmother and grandfather told, mingling with other realms, of silken cloths made from worms brought over on a ship's helm, to lands where fires burnt only at night and people sat, singers, poets, people of the melodies, singing, going back to the time when snakes first emerged from oceans, to follow trails set out by other creatures into the sun, worms, lizards, and greater beings that became our birds, all of them with a line in time behind their backs, of ancestors. And I, who walk this beach and take a shell, trace its spirals etched by each of the elements, and sketched by mathematicians, discovering codes behind the patterns on each one. Shells, fossils, flowers, ferns, unfolding shapes, and most of all, the spaces between lines on the shell in my hand, unnoticed until I sink, myself, a clear product of the paths of all my ancestors, and bound by the line of time that reminds me of where I am from, until I sink into myself, into the sound beyond perception by any sense, that rises from the spaces between the lines, between the tracks, beyond which are the sounds of stars, the spaces in between one's starlight and that of the other ones, reaching my ears, having travelled through the cracks on the waves of codes that came down, so our ancestors could perpetuate their generations, not only to stand beyond and behind time's helms, but to obey these invisible laws that unfold under our sun, that help the queen bee plan the numbers of daughters to come, that help her plan from one generation to the next, all those ones born by the codes of unfolding, that also inform the spirals on the shell, which I put up to my ear and now thank, its etchings linked to the greatness of my grandmothers, that will still exist even when time does not. I look to the line behind my back. Time is not the keeper of these ancestors. It is the invisible code that is to thank. And so, no matter who is going to be coming into power, I think it will give us great equanimity and courage to remember that we all come from this same line of ancestors, that we are all communing together, with the elements, with the creatures, with the mountains, that we are all evolving together. Even though it may not appear to be so, there is a great evolution at foot. And the more that we can sink into this and sink into those codes of our ancestors that are seeking to perpetuate the generations, then each of us will bring what is needed specifically for this time. So let us lay all judgment aside. Let us lay all despair aside and sink into that line of ancestors beyond time. Sink into the space that you are, the space in which you live and create. We are all called to create. And it could be something as simple as choosing to live in joy upon this earth. It could be as simple as deciding to open to that specific code that is yours. It could be as simple as taking care of the elderly. We don't need to make big, grand, sweeping gestures. So I wonder if we can ask ourselves at this time, what is a small gesture of evolutionary consciousness that I can contribute? Is there a spark of love within me that can then ray out to others? Is there a spark of inclusion that can unfold and invite others? Is there a spark of joy that is just waiting to be lived within you? So I think what I am feeling at this time are these small, simple measures of humanity, true humanity, that will allow us to walk upon this earth, that will allow us to leave behind the old consciousness and not get caught, that will allow us to continue walking forward, living out the code that is yours to live. So, if you would like to receive and purchase the Sacred Memories Remembering Your Ancestral Gifts session that we entered into, please see my website, meghan.life. We had a beautiful gathering of meditation, music, movement, prayer, really going very, very deeply into connecting with the elements, connecting with these ancestral codes and communion. So you're most welcome to join us through the recording. So until next month, I wish you a stable time. I wish you a wonderful Thanksgiving towards the end of the month for those who are in the United States. And I wish for peace to reign for all souls who are living and dying at this time. So please take good care. Commune deeply with your own soul and that of the earth and those around you. And open to the truth of your code of existence. Many blessings to you all. Arahanui.